Once upon a time there lived a couple, Samuel and Cynthia. They had been married for 12 years with 2 daughters, Mary and Rose. Mary was 11 years old, while Rose was just 6. Samuel's attitude towards his wife started changing because she gave birth to only girls. As an African man, he wished to have a male child who would replace him when he leaves the earth, when Cynthia got pregnant again. Samuel was very happy, but everything changed when she came back with the news that she was carrying a female child. Samuel complained bitterly to his wife about how she always ended up giving him female children. Cynthia tried to tell him that she did not have the ability to determine the gender of children, but Samuel shut her up and warned her not to talk when he was talking. Samuel's attitude towards his wife grew from bad to worse. Anything and everything she did was wrong in his sight, and he beat her at any slightest offense. Months later, Cynthia had rumors that her husband had impregnated another lady and always went to visit her place. Cynthia felt so bad, but she waited for her husband to come back so she could ask him. When Samuel came back home that evening, Cynthia calmly asked Samuel, "Darling, there's something bothering me. I've had some rumors circulating about you expecting a child from another woman. Is that true? Are the rumors true?" But Samuel refused to answer his wife. She kept pressuring him and kept asking him the question. Samuel got angry and asked her, "Woman, I can see that you are very curious to know if I'm expecting a child from another woman. Now wait for me here. You will get answers to your question." He turned around and left the house an hour later, and Samuel drove into his compound again with a lady when they came down from the car. Samuel carried the lady's bag and kept pampering her. Cynthia was heartbroken at the sight of her husband, taking care of another lady in her presence. Tears trickled down her cheeks. The lady began to make mowing faces at Cynthia. Cynthia was in so much rage that she slapped the lady. Samuel, out of anger, began to beat Cynthia. He gave her the beating of her life, not minding the fact that she was heavily pregnant. Their daughters Mary and Rose kept trying to stop him. "Daddy, please stop. Stop hitting Mom. She's all we have. Please stop." After he had beaten Cynthia. To his satisfaction, he left her on the floor and walked into the house with his new wife. Cynthia lay on the floor crying. Mary saw blood on the floor where her mother was lying down. She rushed to her father's room and kept knocking, calling on him to come help their mother. But a voice from inside warned her never to knock on the door again. "Leave that door, Mary. Don't knock on that door again." Mary ran back to her mother and helped her stand up. Cynthia, in the company of her 2 girls, walked slowly down the road to the hospital. When they got to the hospital, Cynthia was taken in, and the girls were left in the waiting lounge. After a while, the doctor came out and saw the 2 little girls crying. He couldn't bring himself to tell the girls that they had just lost their mother and unborn baby. He asked the girls what had happened to their mother, and they said that it was their father who had beaten up their mother. The doctor made up his mind that he was going to file a case against the little girl's father. The girls asked him about their mother, and he told them that they will come back for her after seeing their father when they arrived at Samuel's house. The doctor got scared and decided against filing a case because Samuel was a wealthy man. He walked in with the girls and met Samuel in the sitting room with his new wife. The doctor told Samuel that his wife was dead and that he should come and make the arrangements to take her to the mortuary. Then the doctor left. Mary, who was old enough to understand what death meant, she covered her mouth and cried deeply. Naive Rose was trying so hard to console her big sister. Samuel was touched. He never planned to kill his wife. He felt sorry for his daughters. He tried to go and console them. His new wife, Susan, tried stopping him by faking pains around her stomach and falling on the sofa. Samuel came to help her up. She told Samuel to take her into the room because the pain was too much. Samuel took her inside, forgetting his girls. Mary and Rose slept off in their own tears. In the morning, Susan came out and met Mary and Rose lying down on the floor. She poured a bucket of cold water on the girls. She asked, "Came to get a mop and wipe it off." When Samuel was about to come out of the room, Susan quickly asked the girl to go and hide so that their father wouldn't see them, or else she would beat them. When he came out, he asked about his girls. and Susan told him that they were sleeping. Samuel called his friend to confirm if Cynthia's cops were taken to the mortuary the night before, and after confirming that he left home after, Samuel left. Susan called the girls and asked them their names. She told them that she was now in charge. She divided the house chores between the two girls. Mary tried to tell Susan that Rose was still little for the work she had given her, but she slapped her and warned her never to talk when she was talking the next day. Susan made sure that the girls kept walking without food. It was noon already, and yet she hadn't given them what to eat. Rose was so hungry, and Mary decided to get some food from the pot for her and her sister. They were still eating when Susan walked in. She poured the food on them and shouted at her for not taking permission from her before eating. Mary and Rose started crying, while their father's mistress left them hungry all through the day towards evening. When Samuel came back, Susan prepared food for herself and Samuel alone, leaving in Mary and Rose to starve. Little Rose was so hungry that she couldn't endure the hunger anymore. She rushed to the dining table where her father was eating and said to her father, "Daddy, I and my sister have had nothing to eat this morning. Please, can we have some food?" Samuel, on hearing this from her daughter, was surprised because she never thought Susan would leave his children hungry. He was not aware that his children were being mistreated in his absence. He gave his food to his girls and left the dining table in anger. Susan, on noticing that Samuel was angry, followed him begging for forgiveness. The next morning, Samuel left very early without checking on his daughters. As soon as he left, Susan flogged both Mary and Rose mercilessly for making Samuel shout at her the previous night. After that, she assigned Charles to them and made them walk without food. That same morning at around 10 a.m., a strange man named Kelvin came knocking on their door. Susan came to the door and brought the man into the house. She sent Mary on errand to stop her from his dropping into their discussion. As Mary was about to deliver the message to Susan, she overheard the man who came to visit them mention the name of her father. She decided to pay attention to their conversation to hear what they were discussing. In came had the strange man and Susan planning on how to kill their father and take over his properties. "What are you waiting for, Susan? We are taking too long. Poison him, and let's take over the properties immediately. There's no time anymore. No, we can't do that now. If we kill him now, how then do we claim his properties? Wait until I give birth and I convince him to will all his properties to our son. After that, killing him will be a piece of cake." Then Kelvin told Susan he knew how to kill Mary and Rose, and no one would find out. He whispered into the ears of Susan. When Mary had this, her heart started beating fast, and she ran into the kitchen that day toward evening after Kelvin had left. Susan came calling out to the girls, but no one answered. She thought they were sleeping and went into their room, but they were not. There she searched everywhere around the house, but they were nowhere to be found. Susan asked the gate man about the kids, but the gate man said he hadn't seen them either. Few minutes later, a car honked outside, and it was Samuel. Susan's heart began to beat faster. Samuel came into the house and asked Susan, "Why do you look so restless? And where are the kids?" "I'm fine. It's just the pregnancy. The girls are in their room sleeping." She took Samuel into their room immediately, so he wouldn't go around asking for his daughters. Susan was confused on what lie she was going to tell Samuel if he found out. His daughters were missing. She needed to call Kelvin and ask for a solution, but she can only do that the next day, so Samuel won't hear her conversation with him after dinner. Samuel was so tired he lay down and slept off in the morning. Samuel left the house and entered his car to leave for work. He remembered he had not seen his children since the previous day. So he went back into the house straight to his children's room, and on getting there, his girls were not in their room. He asked Susan about his kids, but she had no answer. Out of anger, Daniel raised his hand and slapped Susan. She fainted. Samuel became confused. He didn't know if he was to go after his girls or take his wife to the hospital. It happened that the previous day after he came over, had the conversation between Susan and Kelvin to kill them and their father. The girl was confused and didn't know what to do. She didn't know if she should tell her father about their plans. She was not even sure her father would believe her. So she decided it was best for her and her sister to leave since Susan and Kelvin were plotting to kill them when Kelvin had left. Susan was sleeping in her room. Mary took some of her clothes, and that of her sister packed them into their school bags. Each of them carried theirs and sneaked out of the building. She ran out with Rose. They were stranded and scared with nowhere to go. She wanted to go to her mother's friend's place, but then she feared they would take them back to their father. And Kame, being a smart girl, came up with a very good plan. She saw a man standing on the roadside like he was waiting for the bus, and Kame touched him and told him, "Good afternoon, sir. Please could you take my sister and I to the nearest orphanage? My mother has just passed away, and we have no one to care for us. Please, sir, help my sister and I." The man was touched when Mary told him that their mother was dead. He wiped their tears and began to ask people around for the nearest orphanage. It was about 2 hours' drive. The young man was so touched that he decided to take them there himself. After a long drive, they arrived at the orphanage with Mary and Rose. They turned him, and he waved them goodbye and left. The next day, a couple came for adoption, and they saw Rose looking so cute. They wanted to adopt Rose. The management told them that the girls just came into the orphanage the previous day, but the couples insisted that they wanted Rose, but Mary refused to let her sister go. "We are sisters, and she can't go without me. We have to go together." Watch out for part 2. Meanwhile, subscribe to our YouTube channel and be blessed.